Hi, I'm Mike Matchett with Small World Big Data, and we're here talking about a topic that we've been talking a lot about lately, which is security. There are a lot of security problems going on. One of the interesting things that people are doing these days is using and relying upon MSPs to provide some of their IT infrastructure, provide some of their IT services. But are MSPs secure? Are they doing the right things for security? Well, it's an interesting question, and we've got SaaS Alerts here today. I've got Jim Lippie. Welcome, Jim.
Hello, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Uh, this is kind of interesting for people to think about because when they're in charge of security, they have a checklist of things to do. When their MSPs are kind of expected to be in charge of security, it changes the game a little bit on who's doing what and what the expectations are. Could you talk us
Mhm.
through a little bit about what happens when an MSP takes on security responsibilities?
Yeah, so MSPs really are they are the IT department for most small businesses in the world today. I was a former MSP myself, and I can tell you that we work with a ton of businesses between, call it, 10 and 250 employees. Over the years, MSPs have started to kind of move up the stack, if you will, in terms of size of companies that they service. So that can range now up to 500 to 1,000 individual employees that they work with. Usually, when it gets that high, when it gets over 500, we're talking about co-managed type responsibilities with internal IT and MSPs. But MSPs have really become a major influence in the way IT is managed around the world, because ultimately they can bring a lot of depth to an organization, and they have skills sometimes that an internal IT department can't afford to have on staff
Mhm.
all the time. So it becomes a great option for many businesses to leverage MSPs.
I'm kind of curious about this SaaS idea too, because if I'm a small medium business and I'm out, I don't want to say outsourcing, but I'm using an MSP to deliver a lot of my infrastructure and lower level IT services while I focus on business value, right? Which we
Mm-hmm.
should be doing. I also sometimes use SaaS services almost for the same reason. I use Salesforce, I use Exchange, I use Microsoft 365. In both those cases, I kind of expect them to be handling security. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
case? Am I really able to offload that responsibility as well to my service providers?
Yes, your MSPs absolutely, at least now, they can
Mhm.
with services and solutions like SaaS Alerts. So at SaaS Alerts, we provide SaaS security monitoring specifically through the MSP. So we only sell through service providers like MSPs or integrators, for instance, of Salesforce. And ultimately, they're now able to track the behavior of the end users. So Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, they're great in making sure that everything is locked down from a security perspective of the application itself.
Okay.
But what they don't track is the user activity in each one of the tenants specific to a business, right? So they don't care, right, if, for instance, a user within inside a company is downloading excessive amounts of information from OneDrive, right, or Google Docs or Salesforce. Okay, someone has access, and that's fine. So what SaaS security monitoring does is it finds needles in the haystack. All these applications provide lots of data, a lot of log information about what's going on from a user perspective, and most of it, 99% of it, is completely innocuous. So what you want to do is it's ultimately like finding a needle in the haystack. And what SaaS security monitoring does is automates the security process, scans the tenant back and forth, in real time, and picks out the unusual user behavior associated with that specific application, that specific user.
All right. So it's not necessarily about securing the back end, which is the responsibility of the service provider who's providing the back end, but almost about taking security and making it an overall picture because you have to look across your users as well as what's going on there and look at that behavior. And it's kind of difficult maybe for just a technology provider to do that. So you come along and you say, for an MSP whose business it may be to get more in the business of their clients, right? So the
Right.
final mile, to actually be able to do that. So what's involved under the hood in SaaS alerts with this ability to look at user behavior? Are there
Mhm.
how do you get into the stream of things? Are you is everything routed through a certain firewall? Are you um, having to put in place custom rule sets for each policy? What does it take?
Yeah. So first of all, for decades, really the IT community has been focused on managing devices.
Hmm.
And now the notion is, look, a lot of users can have a lot of devices. So we need to be focused really on what the user does and follow the user.
That changed user behavior, kind of, right?
Exactly.
That user behavior
Exactly.
is
Because,
yeah.
I have a standard device, I have multiple devices, but if I'm traveling, I need to log into my Google account from the business center at a hotel, right? Like there's no way that like an RMM agent, whatever, is following me from my primary device where the agent is to that device in the hotel. So again, because I can log in from anywhere from any device, you need to track what I'm doing specific to that application. So when you think about SaaS alerts, it's really three modules.
Okay.
It's manage, it's report, and it's respond. So MRR, which is, those are monthly recurring revenues as a big thing for MSPs. So the acronym is important. But again, when you think about our application, it's manage, report, respond. And manage essentially that module allows the MSP to customize thresholds around, for instance, if someone's downloading again excessive amounts of information from a tenant, what is this threshold that I want to be alerted as the MSP that something is wrong and unusual? Or, this user, Mike, for instance, can only, he's only supposed to log in from a specific IP address or a range of IP addresses or a specific country, right? So I can customize essentially the thresholds around you, the user, Mike, or the organization. And then the report module demonstrates and shows the end customer through the MSP, okay, what is going on in a summarized format that's, charts and graphs and so forth. And then respond is automated remediation. So it's 2:00 in the morning. Everybody at the MSP is sleeping because MSP models, the economics of the MSP model, generally for most MSPs, they can't staff people 24/7, 365. So what they're doing is, we're giving them automation to be able to solve a problem at 2:00 in the morning when someone is logging in, unauthorized user is logging in from an unauthorized place. We can flag that, and then we can actually shut down that account, giving the MSP time to bring that user back online safely when they just determine what actually happened. And so responds the rules engine so they can customize any number of variables that determine, in their minds, what is worthy of for instance, a lockout.
All right. I think it's more common these days too for security people to get a little more support from their uh, uh, you know corporate management to take actions proactively. I used to be, I can remember days where like, oh, if you find something anomalous, then we have to go talk to somebody about it and maybe have a meeting the next day and decide, and now with ransomware, it's like there's security people I know are like, no, if I discover something anomalous, I need authority right now to shut it off, and we'll figure it out later. I need to shut to the point of shutting business down, right? So I think
Exactly.
that's becoming a lot more common. Um, let me just ask you this though. So, one of the things that I think people are concerned about is like with what happened with Solar Winds, what happened with Kaseya, what happens that.
Mhm.
How do you tell people that you're also secure and what you're doing is secure at that meta level?
You mean at the MSP level or the end user level?
I think just even from the SaaS alerts level, like how do we know
Mm-hmm.
that you're secure in what you're doing and
Mm-hmm.
bringing to the market, and that someone hasn't
Mm-hmm.
gotten in your back door?
Right. So first of all,
And the
we have
MSPs, I guess. Sure. I mean, you got to watch the whole chain. So yeah.
yeah. So one of the things that we do at SaaS Alerts is, MSPs get to use our software free. If they're paying a monthly minimum for their customers, then their tenant is completely free
Okay.
for whatever number of applications they want to monitor for themselves. I mean, we're personally, yeah, SaaS Alerts, we're SOC 2 certified. We're moving toward our ISO certification as well. And we've created a number of, different firewalls along the way. We started out with manage and report as literally just a reporting engine, an alerting engine. So there's no access to a back end, so to speak. It can't be our application could not be weaponized against an organization, for instance, like an RMM,
All right.
like a SolarWinds or a Kaseya, for instance, in those cases. But with Respond, now you have the ability to essentially change the tenant or act on behalf of the tenant. So we have special permissions if you want to do that, right? It can, you wall yourself off, and then we've got different security measures in place to make sure that first of all, you're fully aware of what is going on. And in addition to that, we also monitor our own product. So we give access to our users. We give access to essentially audit us.
Okay.
In real time.
So there's a lot of transparency on the important mechanisms going on through all the parties involved. So it's not simply the end user throwing something over the wall to the MSP, who's throwing it maybe over the wall again to you guys, right? And then there's this distant chain, but there's a kind of now a triangle of transparency which makes everyone a lot more comfortable with what's going on.
Exactly.
How long does it take to get SaaS Alerts configured, assuming the MSP has onboarded you as a service they're offering? How long does it take them to enable a client?
About 60 seconds.
Oh, okay. So this isn't a big, I have to spend it. This is something they just can go in and.
No, it's all API driven.
Okay.
So you literally put in the credentials for the tenant, and it starts populating in about 60 seconds, and it goes back about a week from the time that it's set up, and then you have ongoing, data from there.
All right. So we're running towards the end of this. I guess one last question on this sort of thing, Jim. If you had to give some advice to a small medium business owner about security these days, what would sort of be your number one piece of, I don't know, advice, best practice recommendation? What would that be?
Layers. So like when it's really cold out. I don't know where you live, Mike, but
Boston, which gets cold sometimes.
Yes, exactly. I'm a Northeast guy myself.
Yeah.
Right. So when it's super cold out, the advice always is dress in layers, right, to protect yourself from the cold. Cybersecurity is the same exact way. You need to have as many layers of security around different aspects of an IT environment as possible to mitigate the exposure. I mean, I think all security professionals would admit that nothing is foolproof, but the more layers you put in place, the more you can mitigate the level of exposure. And that would be my advice, is that if it makes sense from a security standpoint, whether your MSP or internal IT person comes to you and says, look, we need to do this for these reasons, and it makes sense, then you should seriously consider doing it.
Okay, so because cost isn't really the biggest factor right now, it's risk and ransomware and all this other stuff that's going on, and the insider threat, people exfiltrating data and all sorts of stuff. We want to be protected from that because that data loss integrity is everything. Okay, Jim, if someone is interested in looking more into what you do, SaaS Alerts, whether it's an MSP who's interested in providing SaaS Alerts to their customer base, or end customers who might want to take a look and say to their MSPs, I need this. What you guys should maybe bring this along to us. Where would you send them? What would you point out to them?
Well, I mean, we would point them to our website, saasalerts.com, and you can see, what we do, and we have some videos and testimonials and things of that nature on the site. You can sign up literally for a trial or a demo. Okay. And if you're a small business that's got internal IT, then you fill out our sales form, and we can actually recommend you to one of our MSP partners in your region that can bring SaaS alerts to you.
Okay, so there's a way to get hooked up on this, whether you're an MSP directly or an end
We
user.
we literally just did it hours ago. We had someone contact us on our website, say, "Hey, I want SaaS alerts," and they were direct, and so we're passing them along to a very capable MSP of ours.
Oh, that's great, because that recommendation is also something that a lot of people would appreciate too. And like, how do you help pick out of the 15 to 20,000 MSPs out there?
Yeah,
Anyway, Jim, we're right at the end of our time. I thank you for being here today. Thanks for explaining this to us.
great. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, and so check out SaaS Alerts. And like Jim said, it's about layers. So if you don't have that layer covered yet, could be a critical piece to research today. Take care.
And Mike, just one last thing.
Sure.
Remember to cover your SaaS.
Cover your SaaS. All right. Take care, guys.
Okay.